Hey y'all, it's Diana again. How y'all doing tonight? Well, tonight I thought we would do another episode of Woman Once Removed. So, what do you think we're going to talk about tonight? I've had a lot of folks that have been asking me how I made the money for my surgery. So, I have hinted out about it all through the years. I've never went into any detail until now. It's not something that I can say that I'm proud of, but then again, it's not something I'm ashamed of. Because my taking care of my situation, myself, was very important to me. And I had already learned right before I moved to Charlotte from home to start living as my true self. I knew that I was stronger than I ever thought I could be. And I knew that I could survive. But still, that was something I didn't want to do. Um, I had lived as Diana for about 9 months, and it was getting Christmas time, and I went home to spend it with my folks. And I talked to my mother very seriously. I had already found Dr. Barber. I had already seen his work, and I seen how beautiful it was and how, as far as I could tell, it looked natural. His work did. So I really was excited about jumping in there and getting my surgery so that I could live life as a young woman. I wanted that bad. So when I went home during Christmas time, Mother and I made a trip to Mississippi and visited with family and stuff. And when we got back, now I might go into some more detail about that later. I spent a lot of it with Jean and different things went down, but that's not the reason for this story. But we did go down there first, and we come back home. And before I went back to Charlotte to resume my work, I explained how important it was that I could have the money to have my surgery, that I felt like I really needed it, and gave her all the pros and the cons, yada, yada, yada. And that's when she says, well, this is something that is very, very serious. It's not something that someone just jumps into. And even though I didn't feel like I had to jump into it, I had been preparing for this since I was 12 years old. So I knew what I was getting into. But her reasoning was that this was something that was so important and so serious that she thought that I, in the long run, would appreciate it more if I made the money myself. So I explained that I had been approached with an offer to work as a call girl, as a prostitute. And I didn't want to do that. I was scared to death. I was scared to death because I'd be having to do this with men that thought I was a woman. And I was going to have to go through a lot of changes, a lot of things just to be able to do this. But I'd had this offer from someone who did not know that I was trans. And so I told Mama, I said, I've got this opportunity that I can go to work being the oldest profession a prostitute. And my mama said, you do what you have to do. Whatever it takes. If that's what you want and it's that important to you, then you do whatever it takes to get the money. So she took me back to Charlotte, to my friend's house that I had been staying with. And she's the one who had gotten me up with the person. She wanted to go to work for him, but she was afraid because this place was straight up and up. They did not hire trans women at all. Now, there was a place in town. The owner had Olean's, the local drag club. He was kind of mafia type of gangster person. And I didn't want to go to work for him. Plus the fact that those men that came there, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, were perverts. And I did not feel I wanted to be involved with that kind of clientele. So I got back and we started working on it and trying to get our minds into doing this. We were going to go together. She bagged out. Her name is Carmen. I love her dearly, and there's much to tell about Carmen during my whole story. But Carmen was a country girl from Georgia, and she had lived all over the place in Charleston and California. She had lived everywhere, and she knew how to prostitute. She had left from Charleston, South Carolina, and that's what she did for a living, was a prostitute. But she was afraid to go to work at this place where nobody knew. It was Vogue was the name of the place. It was very high class. And the lady was really particular about who she even hired. So I was really lucky and proud when Gladys was her name, hired me. So up to that date, I was the first trans woman who went to work in an adult field where that person, the manager of that club, did not know that the person they were hiring was trans. They had no idea. And so I had to learn really well how to do a professional blowjob. It's something I never did like. And the fact that you're having to do it with people that you don't know, and the majority of the time you can't stand, because that's the kind of man that has to get someone by paying for it. But I had learned in one of my other videos, I talk about how I had discovered that I could take an underwire bra that was several sizes too small, really, really tight, and cut the fabric off the wires and leave the arm things, and put that on and pull my breast over it. And then I would take another French cut bra that had the pads in it, built into it, like pushed. And I had to make sure that one opened in the front. Now the first one was opened in the back, so it couldn't be jerked off of me. So this top one opened in the front, and I could pull my meat around, and it would look much bigger than what it was, and it would look pretty in sexy tops and clothes and stuff like that. Because we wore mostly negligee kind of stuff. And I could go in, and whenever an agreement was made, I learned a good massage during that time. when the agreement was made, then I could take my top off or my negligee thing and unbutton, and I still had a breast there. And you really couldn't hardly see that in the darkness. You couldn't hardly see that it was even there. So that's how I was able to ply my trade. And I was lucky that I looked fish. I looked like a natural woman, and especially in the darkness. And I learned real quick how to paint for the dark. And all those little tricks you have to do so that things don't take too awfully long and you can get out of there and cleanse yourself off and go and wait for the next one. I'm laughing about it because what else can I do? Like I said, I'm not ashamed. I wished I had never had to do it. It's not something I planned to do, or if I had, I would have done it 9 months earlier. But it wasn't something I wanted to do. I mean, I knew it was available. I knew people were doing it. They were doing it on the streets. The black girls that I met when I first got out of my hormones, those were street hookers, transgender hookers. And they even worked the streets out in front of Olene's Lounge. So I knew it was going on. It's just not something I thought I wanted to do. I thought I was more elevated than that. But I learned to take care of myself. So within 6 months of working there, I had my breast implants done. And within another 9 months after that, I had my bottom surgery. And during that time, Carmen got the nerve to come out there and go to work. Oh, if you can do it, I can do it. So one day, she was in the back with a customer. All of a sudden, they was hooping and hollering. Then that man come running out and said, that was a motherfucking man. She said, that's a woman. I know, I've seen her vagina. And by this time, Carmen done went to the bathroom. And let's just say Carmen was very well endowed. But she knew the tricks of the trade. She knew how she could take and put her junk in her behind so tightly that she could walk right out of that bathroom and stood with her legs spread, cussing the man back, saying that he had felt her tampon, it had slipped out. And she had a tampon with her. I mean, she was smart. She was smart. And she just dangled it from the string with her legs spread. And up until this was going on, I just knew that somebody was going to be killed. And for the fact that they knew I was her roommate, that I would be next. And I couldn't do what she did. It wouldn't work with me. So, that was our fiasco that happened in that house. And we, luckily, after that happened, I wasn't there that much longer. I worked and I had my surgery. And my plan to begin with, I'm going to do this until I get my surgery and then it's over. And that was my plan. And I worked for another 3 months after surgery because I knew I had to make myself stable. And during that time, I took some of my best customers, some of my nicest, the ones that I liked the most, and gave them my phone number. And I kept those for another year just to keep me going, because I was having to work straight jobs, mostly minimum wage jobs. I mean, Diana with a Cooter Kid had to go to work in a yarn company. I mean, there were a lot of things I did until I got on with my job in Belk Department Store and started doing things that I was making more money. But for that first year, I kept my customers. My insurance man was that I had to pay any driving insurance, and I had apartment insurance, and I had personal insurance. He liked to see me. I had one old man that was, he had to be 75 then. And you could tell that this man had been an extremely beautiful, handsome man. And he would come and he always liked to talk about the 40s, the 30s and 40s when he was a young man. So I picked up an album that was big band music from the 30s and 40s, and I would put that on. And I had an antique kimono, a real kimono. And I would wear that. And I would wear red lipstick and wear my hair up in the buns and stuff, the twist, so that he could feel like he was a young man when he'd come to see me. So he was somebody I really enjoyed spending time with. He was a nice old man. He treated me like a lady. And he was one of the first people that actually got to touch or see my girl. So after that, then I was totally straight, and it hurt me. Even though I was not in business maybe 2 years at the most. I had grown accustomed to the money. I had grown accustomed to buying some designer clothes and good cosmetics and good fragrances and things that I could not afford during those first time when I first lived in Charlotte. I mean, I was living in poverty, and I was enjoying that. So it was hard, and I had to adjust. But adjust I did, because it wasn't what I wanted my life to be. Later on, my mother said, I wish you had stayed on for a few years, and you could have, raised enough money, tucked enough money back that you could have opened up a business that you could have, been successful at. And later on, I wished I had done something like that. But I was just so much wanting to be an ordinary girl. So, that's it for tonight. Bye-bye.